Okay, before we move on to page 14 of section 2.3, I just wanted to make sure everybody got that last answer. We just barely got in before the video stopped. So I did the opposite, added 10 to get B alone, found B to be 14. They gave us M was 5 halves, so I put the 5 halves in place of M and the 14 in place of B, and got y equals 5 halves x plus 14. Okay, moving on to page 14, we're going to learn a new formula. So I always have students say, does it matter which one we use? And it doesn't. You should use whichever one that you feel more comfortable with on the test. And if you have time, you can always use both and make sure you get the same answer. The second one's called point slope form. So the first one we learned was slope intercept. I wrote it up here so you would have it and recognize the name, because it gives us the slope and the y-intercept. 0, b, remember, is the y-intercept. This next one, most of your teachers after this class will probably use this one. So I would make sure and practice with it. If on a test you feel more comfortable and you want to use this, fine. But I would definitely practice with this because you'll see it in your other classes. So point slope formula gives us a point and gives us a slope. So they're always named by what they give us. This gives us a slope and y-intercept. This one gives us a point and a slope. So the point is x1 and y1, and the slope, just like always, is your m. So if you're given those, you plug them in, and then you solve your equation for y and make it look like y equals mx plus b. So this one says use the point slope form. So remember what I said, if you write something 7 times, you'll have it memorized. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So just copied the formula from up there. And by the way, if you ever forget this formula, it comes from slope. So let me show you where it comes from. So slope is the second y minus the first y over the second x minus the first x. Well, in previous classes, hopefully, you've learned that when one side's a fraction, you can make the other side a fraction, and you can cross multiply to get rid of the fraction. So you get y2 minus y sub 1. When you multiply that by 1, it's itself, equals m times x2 minus x1. Take the 2's off, because it doesn't matter what you call them as long as they're different. So that can just be called y, and look what we have. Point slope form. So it just comes from the slope formula. And like I said, if you ever forget it, write the slope formula, cross multiply, and boom, there's the point slope formula. So remember, we're going to plug in here, here, and here. So our point is x1 and y1, and we're going to plug our slope in there. Use the point slope formula to find an equation of a line of having a slope of 2 and passing through this point. So remember, this is my m, and this is my x1, and this is my y1. So I do y minus, and y1's negative 5, so this is where you need your parentheses because you have a double sign. So you have a minus from the formula, and y1's negative 5. In place of m, I'm going to put 2, parentheses x minus, and I look up here, x1 is 3. Then all I do is distribute, bring the number over, get y alone, and I'm done. So I think it's a little bit easier than this, less steps. I don't know, maybe not. So first thing we always do is make double negatives positive. Before we do anything, we have to do that. Otherwise, you'll end up adding something when you should be subtracting, or subtracting when you should be adding. So we always correct that double negative and make it positive first. So now what I have is y plus 5 equals 2x minus 6. From distributing, 2 times x, 2x, 2 times negative 3, negative 6, and I'm one step away from the answer. I need to get y alone because it says leave the answer in slope-intercept form, which is this, y by itself, and put it underneath its like term on the other side. Don't put it underneath the 2x. It's not a like term with that. And I get y equals 2x minus 11. So if I had done it like we did on the other page, put this in for x, put this in for y, put this in for m into slope-intercept, I would have gotten the same exact answer. So there's no right or wrong. You just usually need to do what the directions say. Okay, so this next one is just like the one we did. So I would turn off the video because what I did is 2 of the same kind, 2 of the same kind. So I can do one, you can do one, I can do one, you can do one. So go ahead and turn off the video and see if you can do 14 by yourself. And then come back and check it. So use the point slope form. So that tells me y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And remember, we're plugging in for x1, y1, and m. So this is my m, this is my x1, and this is my y1. So we have y minus, my y1 is 10, equals m, 1/5, times x minus 2. And you might want to have your calculator because it's kind of nice when you have the fractional slope to use your calculator if you can't do it in your head. So just like we did before, our next step, if you look above, our next step is to try to get y alone, but before we get y alone, we have to distribute. So distribute, distribute, and we get y minus 10 equals 1/5 times x is 1/5 x. A positive times a negative is negative. And you can put 2 over 1 and multiply straight across 2/5. Or if you don't like doing that in your head, you can certainly do it on the calculator. So 1/5, 1 fraction bar 5 times, and we already did the sign, so just put in 2, and you see it's 2/5, which is what we got. But doing it in your head, you just put that over 1 and you multiply straight across, 2 over 5. So whatever. But then on the next step, you need the calculator anyway, so might as well use the calculator. So it says to leave in slope-intercept form, which remember is y equals mx plus b. So to get the y alone, we have to do the opposite because we're crossing the equal sign. Add 10. Add 10, put it underneath its like term. It's not a like term with an x, it's a like term with another number. And we get y equals 1/5 x. So to get this next answer, we're going to do negative, so hit the button at the very bottom, negative 2 fraction bar 5 plus 10. And that's going to be 9 3/5. And it's positive, so plus 9 3/5. Done. So how'd you guys do? Do okay? Well, just have to be able to use the calculator, and then fractions no different than a whole number as long as you can do that. Okay, the next two don't give us a slope, they just give us 2 points. So can we find the slope? Because we have to have the slope. Remember, we need an x1, a y1, and an m when it says find the equation. So let's write our formula. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And remember, the things we need are y1 and x1, a point, which we have 2. And if I have a choice between using one with a negative and one without a negative, I use the one without, just so I don't get that double. So it doesn't matter which point I call x1, y1. But what we're missing is m. So that means this problem has an extra step in it. So we need to find m, but that's not a problem. We know how to find m. So second y minus the first y, so 8 minus negative 7 over second x, 10 minus the first x, 2. So 8 minus negative 7, 10 minus 2, which is the slope formula. Double negative is positive. So we get what? 15 over 8, it looks like. And no need to make that a mixed number. In fact, it would be wrong if you did, because remember, slope is rise over run. So it cannot be a mixed number to get rise over run. It needs to be a fraction. So now we have our m, we have our x1, we have our y1. So now we can plug in. So y minus y sub 1 is 8 equals m, 15/8 times x minus x sub 1 is 10. So let's go ahead and y minus 8 equals 15/8 times x is 15/8 x. And then we have 15 over 8, so 15 fraction bar 8 times negative 10. So times negative 10, that gives me negative 18 3/4. Okay, so everybody knows how to do that, right? Use the fraction key. So 15 fraction bar 8 times negative 10. So negative 18 3/4. Now we're only one step away. Yay! So now add 8, because remember we want to get y alone because it says leave it in slope-intercept form, which remember is y equals mx plus b. So we already have negative 18 3/4 in our calculator, so all we have to do is hit plus 8. So then it takes the answer, adds 8, and that's negative 10 3/4. So we have y equals 15/8 x, and we got negative 10 3/4 from those two. Boom, done. Little bit ugly, not bad. Okay, now it's your turn, so follow the lead. You have 2 points, missing a slope, so find your slope first and then plug them in. So go ahead and shut off the video and work on that one. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And this one has less negative, so I'm going to call that one x1, y1. So I see I'm missing my slope. So the slope is the second y1 minus the first y, negative 1. Second x, negative 3, minus the first x, negative 5. I see we're out of time, so we'll pick up from there in the next video.